Hey, ain't no rest for the wicked heart. Straight after the chaos that was the Golden Globes nominations and predictions, straight away back for the Critics' Choice Awards predictions. Those drop about 16 hours from the time of me filming this, so I'm getting in just in the nick of time. And I think what's been good about these predictions is that I haven't had time to sit here and stew on them. They snuck up on me, and I had to really just get them done and get what my initial first picks are in there. And the thing about the Critics' Choice is that they're probably the most accurate Oscar predictor, besides maybe the BAFTAs in a few categories. But despite being made up of critics, they don't really feel that criticky. They generally go with very, very mainstream picks. With the 6 nominees in certain categories, sometimes one of those artsy sort of picks gets in, like an Adam Sandler or a Ethan Hawke First Reformed or something like that, and Dowd for Mass. But usually they're pretty mainstream, with maybe having 1 or 2 slots different from the Oscars at the end of the day. So I'm trying not to let the Golden Globe nominations cloud my opinion too much here. And really what I'm doing here is I'm trying to figure out what I still think the Oscars are going to do, and with maybe a few criticky flourishes thrown in. But anyway, let's get into it. Best Picture, we're back to a single category, and this is the first time I have moved Fabelmans away from number 1. And I have had that feeling for a little while that Fabelmans probably won't win Best Picture, but the reason I've got Everything Everywhere at number 1 is because it's the kind of passion movie that wins these days. It's Parasite, it's Coda, and I've been saying that all year, but I really feel like it's getting everything it needs to get. In my opinion, it needs to get Stephanie Sue nominated, but that's not happening, and it doesn't need that for Best Picture. It's getting 3 acting nominations. It's getting director, screenwriting, probably a couple of techs. I think it can win Best Picture, and I think it's a film that older demographics are responding to a lot better than I initially expected. And nipping at its heels is The Banshees of Inisherin. Yes, it overperformed at the Globes, or maybe it just performed exactly where it is and what it deserves. And it's probably the critics' favorite film of the year, besides maybe Tar and Aftersun. But it's I think it can win Best Picture. I kind of wasn't giving it credit for that before, but I think it can. So I think, from the critics and the Fabelmans, I saw last night. What did I think? Liked it, didn't love it. I thought it was really good, probably like a solid 7.5, 8 out of 10. Some of it was a bit hokey and schmaltzy for my taste, but I know that's what Spielberg does, and probably what's working about it for a lot of people. I really loved the magic of cinema stuff, and I thought the performances were pretty great. My favorite was probably Paul Dano, so I kind of really do hope he gets nominated now. But yeah, Fabelmans, again, it's a top tier contender. I'm starting to lose faith that it might win Best Picture, because it could just be Belfast, and the early frontrunner usually never wins unless it's like Nomadland, where there's no competition. Tar has not missed a beat. A lot of people thought it was going to underperform at the Globes, and it really didn't. All it missed was director, which we kind of all expected it to miss anyway, and I still think it's going to be in the mix to get director at the Oscars and here, so no reason to not have Tar that high up. Top Gun Maverick took a little bit of a blow by Cruise not getting the Globe nomination, because if he was going to get nominated anywhere, it's the fucking Globes. So I don't really know what to do with him now. A part of me does think it needs him in there for it to win Best Picture. It's still a top tier contender, but I'm maybe less convinced about it winning than I was a couple of weeks ago. Avatar: The Way of Water has just shot out of a cannon and come in to dominate the race. I didn't give it credit to get predicted at the Globes. I thought people hadn't seen it. I'm not making that mistake this time around with the Critics' Choice. I think Avatar is in, and by the end of it, it could end up being a top 5 player. Women Talking took a big hit by getting picture, director, and acting snubs at the Globes, but I am kind of just banking on that being a Globes thing, and I know critics do really like Women Talking. It's one of the better reviewed critic films of the year, despite it not dominating critics groups, but I'll be pretty shocked if it misses picture and director here. And if it does, I might start worrying about those categories for the Oscars. Next, I have Elvis. I'm not as high on it here as I was for the Globes, but it actually has much better critic reviews than I thought. It's got like 77 on Rotten Tomatoes. And it's in at this point. It's in. So they're going to nominate it here, even if it's not the most like critical, pretentious type movie. And I'm accepting that. I'm accepting that. Now, usually they go 8 for 10 or 9 for 10 with the Oscars here. And this is one I'm picking that I think could show up here while not at the Oscars, because yes, I know the critics aren't super criticky, but has been doing so well with critic awards. I know it didn't get in at the Globes, but it won Best Picture at the New York Film Critics. It's winning at least something at most of the major critic bodies. And I think People really like it, and people are going to want to put it on the radar. It's not some like foreign movie that people are forgetting about and maybe a pretentious few will see. Like it's in the consciousness, and it could easily be one of these other picks, but I'm going out on a limb and saying RRR is getting in here. Babylon, I have 10th. I still like think it's getting in. Like I'm pretty confident in this 10, but I just know that critics are probably the group that maybe like this film the least. So the Globes revived it, but let's find out if it's a Globes thing or if Babylon is really in there. Next, I have Triangle of Sadness. Now, Triangle of Sadness is probably what I'd have in my Oscar 10 right now over RRR. But what I'm finding with Triangle of Sadness is that kind of regular audiences are kind of liking it more than critics and cinephiles are, at least from what I've experienced. Most cinephiles I know are like, yeah, it's pretty good, but I have issues with it. Whereas a lot audiences are really eating it up. It's making so much money at the European box office. So I really think it can do some damage at the Oscars. But here, I don't quite have it getting in. 12 Glass Onion, a lot of people think it's getting in here. I'm not quite convinced, but it could easily happen. She said critics probably like it more than average audiences, and critics have actually seen it, unlike average audiences. So I think it can get some nominations here. I just don't see it crawling into that Best Picture lineup. And if it does, maybe we look out for it for the Oscars, but I don't know. Decision to Leave. Again, it's people love it, but it doesn't have that universal level of acclaim that I think it needs. Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio hasn't been doing as great as we expected. It's definitely going to win animated, probably getting a score nom, maybe even a song nom, but I just don't see it in picture. And The Woman King, I haven't given up on yet. It definitely has been doing okay with critics groups, and I'm starting to think that Viola Davis might actually get nominated, which massively helps its case. So it's in the running for probably 10th, and that's about it. After Sun, I have here purely because it is the best reviewed film of the year from critics. So if they do decide to be criticky, maybe they could give it a couple nominations, but it's a long shot and kind of wishful on my part. And The Whale is dead. No one likes it. And I kept saying to myself, what happens at the Globes doesn't matter. Maybe it'll still get in. But it just has not shown up anywhere outside of Brendan Fraser and Hong Chow with critics groups. But it really does kind of look dead outside of Fraser. We'll see what happens here, but critics are the people who like the film the least, so I'm really not expecting it to show up much here. Best Director, we had a bit of a shake-up at the Globes, but I'm not straying too far from what I think is going to happen at the Oscars. Now, they usually have 6 nominees here, I think sometimes even 7, but number 1, I still have Steven Spielberg, because he's the Berg, he's the name. We haven't really seen him win anything major yet, but I think with these bodies, he's going to do a lot better than with critics groups. Daniels. Some people still think they're not getting in. Like, I really don't understand it. I know they're not super known filmmakers, and I know it's a small, goofy, comedic film, but they've gotten in everywhere. They are winning critics groups. They're not winning all the critics groups, but they got in at the Globes where a lot of people weren't expecting them, and people think, oh, I think the Oscars might just start. Why? It's a top 2 movie. Why would they be snubbed? The Daniels are in. Martin McDonagh is in. Banshees is performing with flying colors. It's doing even better than 3 Billboards did, which nearly won Best Picture itself. So he's gotten in director everywhere. And I think it's going to happen. I think he's 3rd. And then James Cameron not far behind. At the end of the day, he could still miss the Oscar. And out of this 6, he could be the one who doesn't make the Oscar. We'll see. Because they do tend to be a little more highbrow with their director picks. But I think he's in here. Avatar Fever is at its apex point, and I think he's going to get in. People love the movie. And next I have Todd Field for Tar, and he's one that I think is probably 5th in director or could just miss. And I know he missed the Globes, but I really think that might just be a Globes thing. And I can see the Oscars of all people really going for him, and the Critics' Choice like to predict the Oscars, so I think he'll show up here, especially with how revered Tar is by critics. Last I have Sarah Polley. I'm sticking to my guns despite her missing the Globe, because I really think that might just be a case of them not liking the film at all, because if a body likes women talking, I don't see how they couldn't nominate Sarah Polley in there. But if I'm proven wrong, I may have to stop predicting her. Next, I'm resisting putting Baz Luhrmann in as much as, even though he got the Globes, that is a textbook Globes thing, and I'm really hoping that the critics have the good sense not to nominate Baz Luhrmann in director here. 8th, I have Damien Chazelle for Babylon. with how much the movie still seems like a player, it's weird that he doesn't seem like a contender, but he just doesn't. Next I have SS Rajamouli for RRR. Now, if they really want to go in on RRR, they could put him in here, but I think that might be a bridge slightly too far. Ruben Östlund for Triangle of Sadness. Weirdly, this is one I can still see happening at the Oscars. I don't know, just because it has that European sort of flavor to it, the film. Then I have Gina Prince Bythewood for The Woman King. I'm going to keep predicting her. She's not going to get in anywhere. She'll probably be gone by the time I do my final Oscar predictions, but still in the mix. Charlotte Wells, After Sun. Again, probably objectively like the best directed film of the year. Like, come on. Best critically reviewed film of the year, so I have to have her on the list here. And then Joseph Kosinski for Top Gun. It's a top 5 contender in picture. I'm leaving him in there. And I've just got Park Chan-wook for Decision to Leave, purely because it's something I could low-key see the Oscars doing. So if they want to predict the Oscars, maybe. Unlikely. Best Lead Actress. Now, we had some shocks at the Globes, some big snubs. We had Ana de Armas getting in, but I'm trying not to waver too much. Cate Blanchett is still number 1 and probably will be until proven otherwise, but I really do think the battle is between her and Michelle Yeoh. Because Yeoh's no slouch. She has been winning some critics' groups, probably not as much as Blanchett, but some people disagree, but I really still think Yeoh can win the Oscar and some of these precursors. Next, I have Michelle Williams for The Fabelmans. She's just in at this point. I personally wouldn't nominate her. I thought the performance was pretty over the top, but she is good, and I have no issues with the nomination, and it is happening. Viola Davis for The Woman King, starting to feel like a real thing. Everyone else here was my initial Oscar 5 with her 6, so that could still be the case at the end of the day, but then we've got like Olivia Colman in the mix too. But it's starting to feel real, Viola Davis. Margot Robbie for Babylon, with the Globes reviving Babylon, her getting the nomination. Look, she was always going to get that comedy nomination. It was a pretty weak category, but she could be the 6 who misses out, but I think she's getting in here. And then 6 is kind of a toss-up between Deadwyler and Olivia Colman. I know the Globes snubbed Deadwyler, but could that be a Globes thing? What I'm just going off is everyone I know who's seen the film is saying she's the best performance, not just in that category, but of the year. So I don't know. I haven't seen it, but I am holding out hope that Deadwyler can get in, and if she doesn't get in here, we may have to stop predicting her. And yeah, that spoiler is Olivia Colman for Empire of Light. I'm not putting her in here, even though she got in the Globes. I'm not putting her in here because that movie genuinely has actually bad critic reviews. It's has like 40% on Rotten Tomatoes. People don't like it. If she gets in here, she's probably getting in at the Oscars. That's kind of my logic. And if she gets in, we're going to have to start predicting her. And Ana de Armas for Blonde has moved up to 8th because she got into the Globes. Like, what the hell? That was weird. I don't think it'll happen again, but we got to look out for it. Next is Emma Thompson. Good luck to you, Leo Grand. I've said all I need to say about her. Jessica Chastain for The Good Nurse. Didn't get in at the Globes like I thought, but it's still a performance that's on the radar because that film is on the radar because of Eddie Redmayne. Naomi Ackie, I Want to Dance with Somebody. No one really knows what that movie is. And lastly, I have Mia Goth for Pearl, just as that maybe out there critics pick because that is a really, really popular movie. Best Actor. I actually have Colin Farrell at number 1 now. And what I was saying earlier about the whale potentially being dead, I know I've been saying all year, Brendan Fraser's a lock. I'm starting to think he might not be. I'm starting to think Colin Farrell could win this Oscar. Would he be my number 1 in Oscar predictions right now? No, not yet. But it's getting close because the whale really just might not have enough passion for Fraser to get the votes that he needs. And Farrell's won every critics group. There's been like 20 or 30 critics groups do their awards, and Farrell has not won. I'm not saying he's definitely going to win here, but he fucking well could. And I'd be fine with that because I love Colin Farrell. He's fantastic in Banshee. He's one of my favorite performances of the year, and he's been an actor that I've loved for a decade. So to see him win an Oscar would be awesome as it would be to see Brendan Fraser win for his comeback role. I can't see The Whale for another month because Australia sucks, but I'm very excited to see his performance, and he's still going to get in everywhere despite how much the film's underperforming. And then third, I have Austin Butler for Elvis. A lot of people saying he can win too, and I don't disagree. I just think Farrell is that much stronger than him. Bill Nighy for Living. It's happening. The film's maybe not getting anything else, maybe adapted screenplay, and I love the performance, and I think it totally deserves the nomination. Fifth, I've gone Jeremy Pope for The Inspection. This was kind of a shock nomination at the Globes, but I did flag that it was something that absolutely could happen. And I think if it happens at the Globes, it's gonna happen at the Critics' Choice, because the critics are the people who are really championing this film and performance. And he may not get the Oscar at the end of the day, but I'm pretty confident that he's getting in here. And lastly, I have Diego Calva for Babylon. I know I'm going against Jackman. I've been predicting Calva in my Oscar 5 for a while, and I'm not going to waver on that just because Jackman got in at the Globes. Jackman getting in might just mean that they don't like Tom Cruise. It doesn't necessarily mean that they like Jackman more than someone like Diego Calva. So I could be wrong here. I know I've kind of been a bit belligerent against predicting Jackman this last couple months, but we'll see what happens. If Jackman gets in here, I'm probably going to start predicting him in my Oscar 5 over Jeremy Pope and maybe Diego Calva. Tom Cruise, 8th. Like I said, if anyone was going to nominate him, it's the Globes, so I'm starting to be less convinced now about him getting in, especially now that all of a sudden the Best Actor race maybe looks a little more competitive with people like Pope and Calva showing themselves as genuine contenders. Next, I have Paul Mescal, After Sun. My favorite, if he gets in anywhere, it's here, but it's still not super likely. Adam Driver for White Noise. The Globes nom was a nice boost, but that may just be a Globes nom. Gabriel LaBelle for The Fabelmans. I thought he was going to get in for the Globes. He didn't. So maybe it's all over for him. Adam Sandler for Hustle. Critics like him. People like him. He's respected. And finally, Tom Hanks for A Man Called Otto. Those two are kind of making up the numbers at that point. Best Supporting Actress. I hate this category so much. It's the one I spent the most time on. I sent my list to a few friends whose opinions I respect. Like, what am I doing wrong here? What should we do? And I've kind of been workshopping it. And this could be completely wrong, and it's probably the category that I've been the most reactive to the Globes with, but all I know is that Kerry Condon's getting nominated. That's pretty much all I know, and she could win, and I'd be pretty happy with her winning. Banshee's a huge player. She's one of my favorite performances of the year, so that would be a pretty cool win. Second, I have Jamie Lee Curtis for Everything Everywhere All at Once. I don't understand why. I genuinely just feel like everyone has collectively decided that she's in without even really thinking about the performance. And I'm not trying to be so negative here. It's one of my favorite films of the year. I love Jamie Lee Curtis. She's great in it, but it's not an Oscar performance. It's just not. She's a fun side character. And I'm not going to talk about Stephanie Sue anymore. I'm sorry, but I really don't get this nomination, but it is real. People have decided. Jamie Lee Curtis was like, I want an Oscar, and everyone was like, okay, we'll give it to you. She could win, which is kind of frightening, but she's in, I think. Then I've got Dolly DeLeon at third. I've been pretty belligerent on not predicting her all year, but that Globes nom told me all I need to know. She is front and center in that film's campaign, and they're sort of using her as a machete to cut through and get the film nominations because people love her. She's great Filipino representation. And she is probably the best performance in the film. And I can definitely, she's exactly the type of nominee that would get in at the Oscars. So I think she'll get in here too. Next, I have Jessie Buckley for Women Talking. They got goose-egged at the Globes. I'm still picking one. I don't have the balls to pick both, so hopefully I haven't picked the wrong one because some of my friends have told me it's going to be Claire Foy, but I'm sticking with Buckley for now because I think people have said that she's the more subtle but better performance, so we shall see. And fifth, I've got Carey Mulligan. She said, been umming and ahhing over her. The Globes nomination definitely helps, so I'm predicting her to get in. And then the last one, she was omitted from the Globes, but I'm going with Janelle Monáe for Glass Onion. I don't think she's getting in at the Oscars like a lot of people do, and I was shocked that she missed the Globes, but she's won a lot of critic awards, more than just about anyone. So if they do decide to be criticky, I can see her getting in. A very close seventh is Angela Bassett. She did get in at the Globes, and she does feel like a real thing, but I'm just going slightly with these other people over her, but I could easily be proven wrong. Eighth, I've got Claire Foy. She could get in with Jessie Buckley or over her. I don't know, but she's the one I'm leaving out for now. And this one saddens me, having Hong Chow this low for The Whale, because for a minute there, people were saying she was going to win. And I haven't seen the film, but from what I've heard, she's just stellar in it. And I really love Hong Chow. She's a really great actor. And she just cannot catch a break when it comes to these award bodies. But it's starting to look like it's not going to happen and that Fraser is going to be the only one carrying the torch for The Whale. So it's a shame. This category just keeps changing every week. Nina Hoss-Fatah, I'm becoming less convinced, but it could also be one that on Oscar night, they're like, oh, she's nominated. But I don't know if it happens here. Stephanie Sue, Everything Everywhere, dead, I think, unfortunately. And lastly, I've added Gabrielle Union for the inspection. The Jeremy Pope nom has put it on the radar, and people have said she's excellent in the film too. Supporting actor, another one we got some chaos in, and something I forgot to even mention in my Globes reactions video was that Ben Whishaw didn't get him for Women Talking, which is nuts. I thought he was a lock. I still kind of do. But Kiwi Kwan is number one. He's sweeping. He's winning. End of story. Brendan Gleeson is in, has not missed anything. And Barry Keoghan, I always thought he was getting in at the Oscars. Did not think he was getting in the Globes, which just solidifies his lock status even more. They like double nominating McDonough people, and people are just really drawn to his character. He's a very, very lovable and entertaining character, and I think he's sticking in people's minds. And I'm very happy about this because he's someone I've been a huge fan of for like 6 years now. Ben Whishaw, I still have in there. I'm hoping him missing the Globes was a Globes thing, because if critics like the movie as much as I think they do, there's no reason he shouldn't be getting in here. And I'm sticking with Eddie Redmayne. I asked around, people said the Globes are going to be it. He's not going to get in anymore. Even I kind of said that. But I don't know, with 6 slots, why not? It's clear they're not really interested in nominating the guys from The Fabelmans. So it really does open the door for him a little bit, especially if someone like Ben Whishaw does continue getting snubbed. And then 6, I have Paul Dano. I know Brad Pitt got in over him at the Globes, but I'm curious to see what the backlash is from that. And I'm wondering if it is just a Globes thing. I know that the voting was so close together that said backlash won't affect critics' choice, but Babylon's a film that I don't think critics are going to be as high on as other voting bodies like audiences and filmmakers. But so I'm leaving Brad Pitt out for now, but if he gets in here, I might have to rethink it. Dano was kind of my favorite performance in The Fabelmans, and I think it's a tragedy that he's never had an Oscar nomination. But this, we'll see. Judd Hirsch, I'm less high on. I thought it was really good in his one scene, but gee, it really is only one scene. And weirdly, he's one that I think if he gets in at all, he'll get in at the Oscars and nowhere else, a la Judi Dench in Belfast. So I'm not like saying it won't happen, but I don't think it happens here. Brian Tyree Henry Causeway, one of the most awarded performances from critics for the year, but the film is very small. Woody Harrelson for Triangle of Sadness, barely on the radar. Mark Rylance for Bones and All. He's won a lot of critic awards, but people don't care about the movie, which sucks because it's great. And then lastly, I've added another person from the inspection, Raul Castillo, who I believe got a Gotham nom and is said to be really good in it. Original screenplay, don't need to spend too long on this one. I think it's pretty cut and dry. Banshees, I'm starting to think is going to win, and we may see that picture screenplay split between Banshees and Everything Everywhere all at once. And it will be a very deserved win to see McDonough finally get his second Oscar after winning for his short film, Six Shooter. Everything Everywhere second could still win. Fabelmans, I think, is embedded in there, while I don't think it'll win. Tar, very competitive in there. And Triangle of Sadness, it's that European flavor slot, and I was convinced it was in before it even got those Globe noms, so I'm pretty sure this is a cut and dry 5 for the rest of the race, but we'll see. Babylon 6, if the Oscars decide they really like the movie, it could happen. After Sun, if it gets in anywhere, it's here, but probably not. Decision to Leave, kind of similar reasoning. It could replace Triangle of Sadness at the Oscars. Nope, and The Menu, 2 great original fun films that probably just won't quite make the cut this year. Adaptive screenplay is tricky because I've had a solid 5 that I've been clinging on to, but with The Whale kind of dead in the water, I really don't think it's getting in here anymore. Women Talking, I still think is number 1 by a long shot, and I think it's going to win. Glass Onion, I think it's just in everywhere. She Said, it's in. Could end up being its only nomination if Mulligan doesn't get in. Living, I think it's in. I know the movie hasn't really shown anything beyond Bill Nye, but what else is there? The movie has incredibly strong critic reviews too. And then that 5th spot, I've gone with Top Gun Maverick. There are a few options here, but I just think they're not above nominating blockbusters in adapted screenplay. They did so with Dune last year, even when it missed director. So in lieu of a better contender, I think this vote could just go to Top Gun Maverick because it's Top Gun Maverick. Next, I have Bones and All, which I've been really keen on. It's a really great screenplay, but I just don't think these voting bodies care about the film. Some people think it's white noise. All I'm saying is I've been fooled before with these weird movies. I thought I'm Thinking of Ending Things was going to get in. I thought First Cow was going to get in. If people don't care about the movies, they're just not going to get in. It doesn't matter how fitting of a nomination it is. I would love to be proven wrong, but I really don't think it's white noise. The Whale, as I said, I think it's kind of out of there. And Avatar, lastly, I know it's going to be a big blockbuster contender, but I really don't think the screenplay is what anyone loves about that film. Here we get a couple fun categories. Best Acting Ensemble. Now, this is kind of important for our SAG Ensemble predictions, and as we've learned in the last few years, SAG Ensemble is becoming a very, very important Best Picture predictor, which is why right now I have Everything Everywhere All at Once winning. It might not win at the end of the day, but I think you've got like 5 or 6 really, really solid people there. A few of them are getting acting nominations, and it's definitely going to be nominated if it doesn't win. The Fabelmans, again, you've got a lot of people coming in for really small periods of time, but it's a really great, solid family dynamic. LaBelle, Dano, Michelle Williams. You've got the younger kid who plays Sammy Fabelman. You've got Seth Rogen, Judd Hirsch, Jeannie Berlin, like a really great cast, and I think it's going to be in because of that Best Picture correlation. Then Banshees, ditto, same reason. I know there's only 4 significant characters and you usually need 5, but I just think that film is such a juggernaut this year that it's going to get in. Here it gets a bit trickier. I was originally really convinced of Women Talking being in here. I'm not as convinced now, but I still do think it gets in. And from here, you could throw a blanket over a few films. I've gone with Glass Onion because it's such a big cast, and there are sort of 2 types of ensemble nominees where you have like 4 or 5 excellent performances, or just like a cast of like 10 to 12 really great actors all doing their thing, and that's where Glass Onion falls. And then The Woman King is one that I think can get in here, even if it's not a super strong performer, because there are so many great people in that you can recognize. Babylon's another one that could easily get in, but I haven't really seen people talk about the performances outside the main 3, although I have heard really great things about Joe Vinadepo's work also. She said, like, if it was a bigger contender, it'd be a lock here, but I just don't think it is. Top Gun Maverick, again, wouldn't be surprised by this either. Tar, I don't know. And Triangle of Sadness, that's sort of a more bigger ensemble that I think could get in if the film was a bigger contender. Now, Best Young Actor, Actress. This won't have any bearing on the Oscar race, but it's a fun one to predict. This was a really hard one to predict. I had to go through and do a lot of research on it, ask around. But what I've got is Gabriel LaBelle for The Fabelmans at number 1. He's not super young, he's like 20, but I've looked at their previous nominees, and it looks like sort of 2021 is sort of the highest they go with it, so I think he can get in. Frankie Corio, After Sun, she's been winning most critics groups Breakthrough Performer Award, so she's definitely going to get in here. Sadie Sink for The Whale, one we originally thought was going to get an Oscar nom, and I think she'll be a hard one to go past, even if they don't like The Whale. Now, probably the least known one I have in here is Lily McInerney for Palm Trees and Power Lines, but it's a film that has gotten excellent reviews from critics, and she's gotten in the Breakthrough Performer category at stuff like the Gotham Awards and the Indie Spirit Awards. And while I know it's not a super noteworthy film, I think if critics have seen it, I've heard really exceptional things about her performance, so I've got her in here. Bella Ramsey for Catherine Called Birdie. It's another one that's been getting a lot of weird little nominations. People really like Bella Ramsey, so I can definitely see this one getting in. And lastly, I have Banks Rapetta for Armageddon Time. While I didn't love the film, I thought his performance as a young James Gray was really excellent, and it would be a really deserved nomination here. 7 and 8 are 2 people I could very easily see getting in over someone like McInerney or Ramsey, but I've got Vanessa Berghardt from Cha Cha Real Smooth, which is Dakota Johnson's daughter. I really liked her in the film, and I know it's a film that people really like, so she could easily get in over some of these other people. Jalen Hall for Till, who plays young Emmett Till. I've heard he is very, very good in that. Then I've got Grazia Filipovic, for Murena. She's another one who's been getting nominated for a lot of critics and Gotham's breakthrough categories, but I think the film might just be a bit too obscure for here. Mateo Zorian for The Fabelmans. He's not in it much, but he has such a great little expressive face. Catherine Clinch for The Quiet Girl. If I was voting, she would win, but I just don't think people have seen the film. Daniel Zolgadri for Funny Pages. He might just be a little too old. He's like 22 or 23. He's really good in it though. Jalen Webb for Armageddon Time, who plays the main character's friend, he's also very good in that. And then I've got way too many people here, but Lim Sung Soo for Broker, I loved him in that. He was a great kid. So if they like Broker, maybe. Now, in terms of the techs, these are pretty much just my Oscar predictions, so I'm going to run through them very quickly. Cinematography. Top Gun has been sweeping critics groups. I think it would be a weird cinematography winner, but I think it'd be silly not to predict it. Babylon, I think, is just in. The Fablemans will go along for the ride with the film. It has that nice sort of film grain look. There are some really nice shots and the typical Spielberg one-shot tricks. Avatar, The Way of Water, it could creep up and be a contender to win. We'll see. Bardo, I'm just basing off of how fucking good the cinematography is, even though the movie's terrible. And 6, I've got All Quiet on the Western Front for now. 7th, Empire of Light, just because it's Deacons. Banshees of Inisherin. Now, this is one I could actually see getting nominated. I haven't really seen it get in anywhere, but if they just really will love the movie and want to over-nominate it and don't care about Bardo or Western Front, it could take that 5th spot. The Batman, if I was voting, it would win, but no one cares about the Batman. Everything Everywhere, long shot, Decision to Leave, great cinematography, but a long shot. Best editing, I think this is a race between Top Gun Maverick and Everything Everywhere all at once. We all know that. The Fablemans, Best Picture correlation gets in. Banshees of Inisherin. Now, this hasn't really been one we've been predicting, but I just think since I think it's second in Best Picture, it has to get editing, doesn't it? It's a very snappy, fun movie. I know it's not particularly showy editing, but I have it in right now. And then Babylon I have in as that showy editing pick, but it could easily be Women Talking and Elvis. One is the Prestige Best Picture contender, one is the Bohemian Rhapsody shitty, terrible, over-the-top editing that they seem to love. Women Talking, if it does rise up again as a contender, I'd probably have it in here over Banshees or Babylon, but for now I'm not super convinced by it. Elvis could easily get in. Avatar, maybe I should put it in. We'll see. If it gets in here, I'll start putting it in. All Quiet on the Western Front deserves it, won't get it. Glass Onion would be very fun, but probably not. And Decision to Leave. Costume design, this is just my Oscar 5. Babylon, Elvis, Black Panther, because the first one got it, and they're exceptional. Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. Leslie Manville getting that Globe nomination means the film is on the radar, and if the film is on the radar, how could you not vote for it? The costumes are awesome. And The Woman King, I have too. I mean, it's literally the story Black Panther was based on. These awesome warrior outfits. Like, come on, let's do it. Fablemans, now it could get in as like an Irishman type of nominee, dudes in suits type stuff, but I'm starting to think it would be a weird nomination, especially having seen it. Everything Everywhere deserves a nom, but generally they don't go for modern stuff. Living, The Batman, Till, all would be deserving. RRR would be very fun. And then Avatar, The Way of Water. I mean, a lot of it's digital, so I don't know if it really gets in there. Production design, I still think Babylon's winning this with Avatar nipping right on its heels. Black Panther should still get this. Elvis, I think, gets in here, especially now that it's the Best Picture contender. And then that 5th spot I've kind of got between Fablemans and Pinocchio. Pinocchio would be really cool. I don't think an animated film's ever gotten production design, so I'm not quite ready to take the leap, but I don't know. If they don't want to over-nominate the Fablemans, I think that's next in line. All Quiet on the Western Front deserves it. They do like giving it to war movies, but the film just isn't in the forefront anymore. The Woman King deserves it, probably won't get it. Everything Everywhere, it actually has been winning some. I think it's won a couple of critics for production design. If it gets in at the Guild for Contemporary, I mean, it definitely will. So I think maybe if it gets in here, we could start taking it a bit more seriously here. And then Glass Onion kind of ditto what I said about Everything Everywhere. Best score, I'm starting to think we have a definitive 5. Babylon could win now that the movie's back as a contender. It's Justin Hurwitz. He was snubbed for First Man. Let's fucking make it right. The Fablemans, I probably shouldn't have this second, but I can't be bothered editing the list. I think it's getting in. I don't know why. There's not much score in it. A lot of it is just pre-existing piano pieces, but I just think it's John Williams, and I think they're going to tick that box. Women Talking got in at the Globes despite missing some major nominations, so that definitely means it's a strong contender in score. Banshees of Inisherin is getting in. I didn't think it would get in at the Globes, and it did. So it is in. They like Carter Burwell. Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, it's despite he got in at the Globes, and if I'm trying to predict the Oscars, this is my Oscar 5. 6, I have The Batman. If anyone does it, it's the critics, but I'm giving up hope, even though it's the best score of the year. No one cares. Very sad. Avatar, I've heard people say the score's underwhelming. Black Panther, the film's probably just not enough of a contender. The Woman King is one that I still think could get the Oscars and the Oscars alone because of Terrence Blanchard, but not here. She said Nicholas Britell, but it would be a weird one. Everything Everywhere All at Once would deserve it, but it's too understated. And All Quiet on the Western Front, maybe a bit too weird. Now, I forgot to discuss best song in my rush to make this video, so I'm going to do that real quick. I've got Hold My Hand from Top Gun at number 1. It just feels like it's not going to miss no matter what. Lift Me Up from Black Panther still definitely could be a winner here. Natu Natu, the Globes nom's a huge boost, and especially critics, if anyone's going to nominate it, it's here, and we just got to keep getting it in there. Fourth Carolina, where the Crawdads sing, it kind of went off the radar because the film came out so early in the year, but I kind of had a feeling it'd get the Globes nom, and I feel like that's going to worm its way into contention with how relevant Taylor Swift is right now in the film space. Now here, I've gone with Nobody Like You at 5th. It was Chapa Pa at the Globes, but I don't know. The Critics' Choice do tend to go very popular with animated and song, and they do like to go with animated songs, so I'm going with what might be a slightly safer pick here. 6, I have Ciao Papa from Guillermo del Toro. The Globes nom was a huge boost. Stand Up from Till, always around the mark, even though we haven't really seen anyone nominate it yet. This Is a Life from Everything Everywhere. It's a song for the number 1 Best Picture contender. It's got to be on the list. New Body Roomba, White Noise, best song of the year, won't happen. Applause, Tell It Like a Woman, probably happens at the Oscars and nowhere else. And then Now You Know from Weird, which would be awesome, but, you know, let's be real. Best hair and makeup. I was tempted to take The Whale off at number 1, but I just think it's so impressive, that makeup. I think it's got to get in there. Elvis for the Tom Hanks. Batman for Colin Farrell. Babylon because Hollywood, lots of crazy makeup and stuff. And then the 5th spot's a bit tricky. I'm still going with Black Panther, but trepidatiously. 6, I have X. Won't get the Oscar, but it could get in here. The Woman King would be another deserving one. All Quiet on the Western Front, lots of great mud and stuff. And Everything Everywhere for the Joe Parky stuff. But yeah, I don't know. Visual effects, I'm starting to get pretty confident in this 5 as well. Avatar's winning, so really it doesn't matter. I think the Batman gets in just for a lack of other impressive-looking superhero films. Everything Everywhere has a great narrative behind it. Black Panther has much better effects than the first one, and I think it's probably Marvel's best shot this year. And Pinocchio, they've started the trend of giving stop-motion films VFX with Kubo, so I think it can get in here. And then 6, Top Gun Maverick could just get in because it's Top Gun Maverick, even though it doesn't have a ton of visual effects. Doctor Strange, this year I don't think they get 2 Marvel movies in there. And then Nope would kind of be deserving. It has great effects. And then it has kind of corny, goofy effects, but if they love it, it could do it. Best animated feature. So with this category, we have a solid 4, and then 5th spot, who knows? Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, Turning Red, Marcel the Shell, Puss in Boots: Last Wish. That is a 4. They are locks unless they do like a Lego movie level snub on one of them. Like maybe they don't want to acknowledge Marcel as an animated film. We'll see. 5th, I've gone with The Bad Guys. The Globes went with the Inuo, but they do often go with some more out there picks, while the Critics' Choice generally keep it pretty simple. So I'm going with The Bad Guys because it's a popular movie. Wendell and Wild, I keep predicting I should probably give up. Inuo because it got the Globe. My Father's Dragon, I still think it can get the Oscar, but I don't think Cartoon Saloon have the pull here that they do with the Oscars. Strange World, people don't like it. Lightyear, I don't know why I even still have it on the list. Best comedy is an interesting one because the Best Picture lineup is full of comedies, which they don't usually do. There's usually only one or none that have crossover. So it's a hard one to predict because, like, will they just put in all the Best Picture movies that are comedies, or will they fill it with some actual comedies? They've put Best Picture movies in there in the past, so that's what I'm doing. I'm going with Everything Everywhere, Banshees, Babylon, purely in Best Picture order. Babylon is one that I could err on maybe not being considered a comedy, but it got in at the Globe, so I'm sticking with it. And then next in line, Glass Onion, which I'm pretty confident gets in here, however many Best Picture nominees get in. And then Triangle of Sadness in that 5th spot. But if they don't want to go with Babylon, The Menu is probably next in line. White Noise people don't like enough. Marcel the Shell, a very funny movie. If they were super cool, they'd put in Jackass Forever, but I don't think they're super cool. And Fire Island, which, let me just shout out Fire Island and tell you to watch it because it's one of the best goddamn movies of the year and no one really paid any attention to it. It's such a great romantic comedy. Bros and Weird rounding out the list. Lastly, with foreign language film, like the Globes, they are not beholden to the Academy's outdated submission rules, which is why I think RRR is getting in here and maybe winning. I mean, I have it in Best Picture. It has to be winning, doesn't it? Decision to Leave is in there, probably winning the Oscar. All Quiet on the Western Front, Close, those are all just in. Now, Argentina 1985 got in the Globes, which I thought it would. Here I'm going to go with EO. It's a risk because it is kind of an experimental and out there movie, but it's been winning critics awards. I know this doesn't reflect all critics groups, this body, but I don't know, just EO has been doing weirdly good with critics, so I'm going to go out on a limb and predict it here. But if you want to play it safe, you probably want to predict Argentina 1985, which could be filling that Oscar spot at the end of the day. I think they got 4 out of 5 last year, minus A Hero. Broker isn't submitted at the Oscars, but could get in here, but it hasn't really anywhere despite the opportunity. The Quiet Girl, some people are starting to see it, but I just don't think it's enough. Bardo's feeling like it's almost dead, and then St. Irma, Holy Spider, Corsage just making up the numbers. That was exhausting. Thank you for watching. Now I have to go edit this in time for people to watch it before the nominations actually drop. As for reactions, I will try to do a reaction video for it. It's tricky because they happen at about 4 a.m. here and I have to work the next morning, so I'm either going to stay up and get them out, or they're going to be a little later and it'll just be me reacting to them later in the day, having avoided spoilers. So reactions will be coming in one form or another in discussion because these really are important in terms of predicting the Oscars. And let me know in the comments what you think, how right or wrong I am. Follow me on Letterboxd, follow me on Instagram especially. That's where you can find everything I'm doing. Those links are in the description. And subscribe to the channel. I'm like busting my ass getting all these prediction videos out because I love doing it and I love talking about award season. So if you love that too, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.